Welcome to the third virtual North American Congress of the North American Educational Initiatives Foundation. Over the past 26 years, the foundation has challenged university and high school students to see the equal dignity and potential of all of their neighbors, no matter what their economic or educational status. But given the tragic confrontations among students in recent months, we have decided to enhance and expand our mission to challenge these very students to learn to listen to and respect and to find some shared ground, some common ground with their fellow peers. And as a result, we began our virtual North American Student Congresses in January, then again in February, and this is our third Congress. We are very, very pleased to welcome 14 speakers from universities and high schools from throughout North America. Our first speaker is a team of speakers from the Universidad de Guadalajara High School. All students, I believe, are what we in the United States would call juniors, and they have done a wonderful PowerPoint presentation. We are looking forward to it. Thank you to Mia and to Alejandra. Go ahead, Mia and Alejandra. We're standing by for Mia and Alejandra. Elijah, are you ready to give your presentation?
I am, yes, sir.
Why don't you begin? Thank you,
Okay.
Elijah.
Yeah, of
Elijah
course.
comes to us from the Maggie L. Walker Governor's School. He is a senior.
Yep.
Take care and please begin.
Okay, perfect. Give me just 1 second to share my screen. All right. Excuse me. Are you all able to see my screen? I'm sorry, sir. I think you may be muted. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi everyone. My name is Elijah Lee, and excuse me. I'm a senior at Maggie L. Walker Governor School in Virginia, specifically Richmond. So on the eastern coast of the United States and kind of in a more urban environment. And today I'm just going to talk a little bit about American nationalism, patriotism, and solidarity in the context of Western education. So I want to first talk about the question that I was given, and that was, what do nationalism, patriotism, and solidarity mean to the citizens of the United States formed in a classical traditional Western educational framework? And as you can imagine, this question for me was initially a little intimidating, initially a little daunting, just because there's so many different ways of approaching a question like this one. However, I wanted to kind of take both a theoretical and a practical approach to this conversation because while I think it's important for us to acknowledge some of the more theoretical and perhaps some of the more larger social psychological elements of education, I think that whenever we're having a conversation about education, we're also having a very serious conversation. We're having a real-time conversation. And the policies that we talk about, the approaches that we talk about have real impacts on the young people that are going to be subject to the education and subject to the standards and expectations that we set within our society. So kind of with that, I wanted to first identify the elements of Western education seen in America's contemporary education system. Excuse me, this should be the United States' contemporary education system. And then from there, I want to analyze how these elements impact the perception of nationalism, patriotism, and solidarity among the people of the United States. So first, to kind of open up this question, I want to talk about like the building of an Americanized mind. And I think that this is going to be really important for us to kind of understand as when we want to talk about how does education impact how the citizens of the United States are going to view certain things, we must first understand what are the fundamental core elements of that education, right? From at what point and with what information are the American minds constructed, and in what environment are they cultivated? And so here you can just have some of the kind of core features of the quote unquote Western traditional or classical education. Obviously, we're going to have some of those Greek, Roman, Judeo Christian, and Enlightenment influences. However, I want to center this because this is going to become rather important, especially when we begin to talk about nationalism. Now, what I really wanted to focus on here was kind of what does this education look like in the context of the United States, right? And over the time, the United States education system has been reformed, and reforms have been repealed and re-implemented in new ways. And of course, the education system has expanded and condensed in various areas. However, when we look at the education system that we have today, we do see a general focus on Eurocentric beliefs, right? There are heavy elements of race, there are heavy elements of gender separation, and definitely heavy elements of class divisions that are emphasized within American education. However, what our education also rather uniquely does is it centers Western people, and it centers the narratives of people who are in the United States, and more importantly, people that are in the general global West. Um, and for this, I kind of want to pull on one of my favorite thinkers in this view, and one of the people I think it really lays a lot of this groundwork out, and that was Edward Said. And in his notorious work Orientalism, he kind of lays out this distinction between the us versus the them. Because of the privilege that the United States has as kind of this quote unquote Western global superpower, we have created an education system which sets the people of the United States up to quote unquote be the us, right? And it relegates non-Western people or people who may be in the global South to this position of being the them. And what this education system does is it maintains existing power dynamics outside of America by cultivating the belief within people of the United States that this is the way that things are supposed to be, that this is how we're supposed to operate. And a lot of that kind of groundwork was laid by Frantz Fanon in his book, Wretched of the Earth. And so this kind of leads us to this question of how do us, as the people of the United States, right, interact with our own nation? Post-Western education. So once that we kind of created these ideas, created this psychology, created this mindset, where do we go from there, and how do we interact with this information? And this kind of leads us to the first lens in which we can analyze this, and that's nationalism. So it's to my understanding, and for this conversation, I want to use the definition of nationalism as a loyalty to the ideas of which a nation is founded, not necessarily to the nation itself. And so here in America, excuse me, here in the United States, there is a heavy focus on these kind of Enlightenment ideals, right? Your natural rights, your rule of law, your popular sovereignty. We see this reflected in fundamental documents of the United States, and we even see this today in modern political rhetoric. We also still see within the United States a continuation of racial, patriarchal, and class prevalence, right? Not only was America founded under the guidelines of a racial contract that outlined slavery, and of course, under a very patriarchal system in which women really weren't even considered citizens, these systems themselves continue, right? We still see a system of mass incarceration, a criminal justice system that is very much subject to race, right? We see an economic system that is very much subject to the patriarchy. And we, of course, see a social system that is very much subject to the situation of class and economics within America. And then finally, we still see within the very fundamental elements of our nation an idea of American exceptionalism. Since the beginning, of America as an idea going far beyond and far before 1776, there is this idea that the United States of America would be set aside from everyone else, that they were to be a special nation. And this type of American exceptionalism has continued in our modern education system. It is something that is still seen today. Now that we kind of have these like fundamental ideas of our nations established, we see these ideals deeply reflected in American Western education, right? I mean, AP Gov was going to always stress the importance of republicanism and democracy, and that's straight from the AP College Board. According to the Virginia Department of Education, which is the Department of Education that I am currently under, we still see certain narratives that are highlighted that don't include people of color, don't include women, and don't include working people. And of course, the conversation surrounding American foreign policy approaches, especially historically, are often framed as protective or necessary for security. Um, and I think that these two facts, right, this element of who our nation is, and then also what our education accentuates, they bleed together when we talk about how Americans themselves perceive nationalism. And what we're going to find is that the Western education framework supports and reinforces the very ideals of our nation, right, which is going to contribute to nationalist sentiment. Essentially, as people are raised to believe that certain things like republicanism, like America as a protective nation, like America as a nation necessary for security, as children are taught these things, and then they see these elements reflected in the quote unquote fundamental ideals of their nation, they're going to develop a sense of nationalistic pride. They're going to develop nationalistic sentiment. So in many ways, the Western education reinforces American nationalism. However, that conversation is going to be different for patriotism. For this conversation, I want to use patriotism's definition as one that where someone has maybe a love for the nation itself, not necessarily their ideals. So this is just a commitment to the country. Um, and I think that this is really, really important, and it kind of has a nuanced side of this conversation, as the state of the nation may not necessarily align with the ideals of the nation. So we just talked about how some of the fundamental ideals of our nation are going to be the consent of government, checks and balance, things like that. These are the quote unquote ideals of which America was founded on. However, right now we see increased concerns of executive overreach, a decreasing approval for Congress and the executive, and increased divisiveness and conflict both globally and domestically, which feels much more prevalent saying this today after everything that the United States has been involved in this past week, really. Um, and so we see these rising elements, right? These rising associations with who the United States is, and we see them to be in direct conflict with the quote unquote founding ideals of the nation. And so these ideals that people were taught to believe were okay, these ideas that people were taught to believe were acceptable, are no longer the ideals that are being put into practice. And as a result, we're seeing a record low 38% of US adults say that they are extremely proud to be American, according to Gallup. 59% of Americans believe the country is on the wrong track, according to UMass of Amherst. And 43% of Americans believe we are becoming less patriotic, according to YouGov. And so patriotism itself is declining in America. Why? Because the ideals that we were taught to be acceptable are no longer the ideals that we're operating under. Um, and this is having some really drastic effects. And that kind of leads us into this last point of solidarity, right? Which can kind of be understood as our civic unity. And here, Western education system is divided, right? We see an emphasis on individualism through your natural rights, personal property, things like that. But we also still see this element of solidarity and unity, right? Through popular sovereignty, through the collective good, and etc. Now, what we are increasingly seeing is an increasing amount of divisiveness amongst the American citizens. 26% of adults know most of their neighbors, 44% of adults trust their neighbors, right? And so this divisiveness is growing, and we see this in political culture, we see this in social culture, we see this in every element of the United States. Um, However, we're also seeing greater displays of community. I have here just two protests that were from these past few weeks that were happening here in the United States. And so, what I think that we can kind of conclude from this element is that because Western education is a little bit divided between solidarity and individualism, assuming that these two things are kind of contradictory to one another, we have a situation where people's perception of solidarity is going to be entirely dependent by their own personal experiences. It's really based on who they can resonate with. In situations where we see, for example, recent protests related to ICE and immigration, the people that are going to remain in solidarity with those that are going to be really affected by these policies are going to be people who somehow, some way relate to this. Whereas we see much more apathy in the opposite direction. Now, I know this was a lot of information. However, I wanted to kind of remain considerate of time. But in conclusion, citizens educated with a Western framework are going to really resonate with American nationalistic sentiment and agree with how America has maybe historically operated, but are going to feel quote unquote less American if they perceive America to be veering away from these ideals, feeling less patriotic and more solidarity amongst themselves instead of the government. However, as I mentioned very early on in this presentation, the Eurocentric ties of Western education cannot be ignored, and therefore we must constantly reform the education curriculum through policy changes. Um, Here are just some limits to the conversation. The number one is that by no means am I an expert in this, and we only didn't even scratch the surface of this conversation. However, my hope is that we were able to provide a little bit more information on just where the people of the United States are in relation to the current Western education framework that we're operating under. But yeah, thank you.
Elijah, how old are you?
I'm 18.
You're 18 going on 40, 45. I feel like you're a professor.
Thank you.
Do people tell you that?
No, no, sir.
It was just what a presentation. Now, I don't want to take away from the time of your fellow panelists and people in the audience. So let's open the conversation up to questions, please. Are people able to make questions give questions to Elijah? Okay, Lilia Curley has a question. What do you
Yeah.
think is the key takeaway? Lilia is writing to us from Canada. So what do you think the key takeaway is? Oh, Prince Edward Island.
Yeah, so I think for me, it was really important going to this conversation, analyzing Western education as definitely a curriculum, but more importantly, a set of beliefs. And what we have identified and what I have identified is that the Western education system, at least how it is taught in the United States, is done so in a way that all of the actions of the United States, historically at least, are going to appear justified to its citizens. And those who are also under a quote unquote Western traditional classical framework of education, those actions are also going to seem justifiable. And this is where I kind of have concern, right? Because the United States absolutely has been involved in efforts what I believe to be against humanitarian and international law. And so I think the kind of clear and primary takeaway is that if we want a society that is going to be more inclusive, more progressive, more equitable, and more empathetic for not only our position in a single country, but for those abroad, we are going to have to fundamentally reform how we teach our kids. And we're going to have to start taking accountability as a nation and saying that there have been things that we have done that are not acceptable. And we're going to also have to take accountability for how we have ourselves constructed our nation, that there are systems here that operate the way they're supposed to and are fundamentally causing people harm. Um, and I think that this is a huge undertaking, but one that has to start somewhere before we can really continue this conversation of education's impact on American minds.
Good. And we have a question from Eduardo Serrano. Eduardo, are you able to ask your question? Are you able to unmute? Or can you send us the question in the chat? Okay, so let's continue. I'm sorry, Eduardo, but maybe we'll have that fixed um, in a little bit, right? So we are going to continue. Thank you, Elijah, for that wonderful presentation. And I believe that Mia, are you ready to give the presentation?
Yes, me and my partner, Michelle Rojas.
Yes.
Yes, we are ready. We are going to present the PowerPoint.
Now, is it with Alejandro, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. So, are you able to begin to open up your screen and present?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Can you see the presentation? I think your microphone is off.
I do not see it yet.
Okay. Oh, it is strange.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll see it.
Oh, can we present with all the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation? I don't know why you can see it.
Okay.
Can you now see my screen?
Yeah, we could see it.
Okay, well, hello everyone. My name is Mia Scarlett Garay Martinez, and my partner's name is Michelle Alejandra Rojas Martinez. Today we are going to talk about nationalism, patriotism, and solidarity. So please, Michelle, go ahead.
Well, we believe that first of all, if we wanted to talk about these three values, it's really important to first give you a little introduction about Mexico, about his history and culture. Well, as we know, Mexico is a country very rich in history and culture. Mexican identity has been shaped by many influences over the time, and one of them is from the indigenous civilizations such as the Aztecas, the Mayas, the Olmecas, etc. Later, as we know, the Spanish colonization also influenced a lot of things in Mexico, like the language that we're still talking till today, and the religion and traditions. And because of these combinations of culture, Mexico developed a unique national identity. Well, also the historical background. Before the arrival of the Spanish, there were many advanced civilizations in the region, including, as we mentioned before, the Azteca, the Maya, and it's until the 1521 that the Spanish conquered the Aztec Empire and colonized the territory for about 300 years. In 1810, Mexico began its war from this independence from Spain. And then in 1910, the Mexican Revolution changed into everything as we know from the country, like political and society structure of the country completely changed. Well, what are these values mean? And why are so important? Well, first of all, the information that I'll tell you before is something that most of the people who study in Mexico knows because they teach us this since we were little, and it's form of our education in Mexico, and these values help to shape the identity and characters of the students through learning, how I said before, the country's history, the traditions, and shared experience. And by this, students begin to develop a deeper connection with their nation and with the people around them. This patriotism, nationalism, solidarity create a sense of belonging and unity, and they remind students that they are part of something larger than themselves. Well, specifically, the nationalism refers to the feeling of pride and identification with one's country. In Mexico, this is extremely connected with the history and culture because many Mexicans feel proud of their indigenous roots, their language, their food, and their national celebrations. And I think this is thanks to the education that we receive, because schools help to develop this by teaching students about important historical figures such as Miguel Hidalgo, Benito Juárez, and other national heroes. And by learning about these people and events, students develop a sense of belonging and pride in their country. Patriotism is closely related to nationalism, but it focuses a little bit more on love and respect for the country. Being patriotic here means to caring about the well-being and future of the nation in general, and is often expressed through the respect for national symbols such as the flag or the national anthem that we sing on Mondays. And I think most of the schools we sing the national anthem in Mondays, and also the coat of arms and activities like flag ceremonies and national celebrations. Which help, I think, to strengthen the patriotic feelings and also help us to think more about not thinking the country is perfect, but knowing that it's not, and we have to improve that, and we have to know the history to not repeat that again.
Okay, next I will talk about solidarity and values in Mexico and how they are reflected in Mexican society and how high school students learn and express them. First, solidarity is a very important characteristic of Mexican society. Solidarity means supporting others, helping people in need, and working together as a community. In Mexico, this idea is deeply rooted in the culture. Many people believe that when someone is going through a difficult moment, the community should help them. One example of solidarity in Mexico can be seen during natural disasters. When earthquakes, hurricanes, or floods happen, thousands of people organize themselves to help. They donate food, clothes, medicine, and sometimes even their time and effort to help rescue people or rebuild homes. Many volunteers travel long distance just to support affected communities. This shows how strong the sense of solidarity is in Mexican society. Solidarity is also visible in everyday life. For example, neighbors often help each other, families support one another, and communities organize activities to solve problems together in many places. People share resources, give advice, and help when someone is sick or in trouble. This sense of community creates strong social bonds and helps people feel that they are not alone. High school students also learn solidarity in different ways. In the schools, teachers encourage teamwork and cooperation. Students often work in groups, help classmates who have difficulties with homework, and participate in the school projects. Some schools also organize activities like collecting fruits or clothes for people who need help. Through this experience, students understand the importance of supporting others and being responsible members of society. Another important element in Mexican society is the values. Values are principles that guide people's behavior and help them decide what is wrong and what is right. In Mexico, many values are strongly connected to family, respect, and community. I think the most important value in the Mexican society is the respect. Students are taught to respect their teachers, classmates, and other people in general. Respect also includes listening to others, accepting difference, and treating everyone with dignity. Another important value is the responsibility. Students learn that their actions have consequences and that they must take responsibility for their work, their studies, and their behavior. Responsibility also means fulfilling commitments, following rules, and contributing positively to the society. Kindness and empathy are also essential values. But schools plays an important role in teaching these values. Teachers not only teach academic subjects, but they also guide students in development a good character. Through classroom discussions, teamwork, and social activities, students practice values like honesty, cooperation, patience, and tolerance. Finally, values are reinforced at home. Families teach children to appreciate the culture, help others, and behave with integrity. The combination of family education and school education helps young people to develop strong moral principles. In conclusion, solidarity and values are fundamental elements for the Mexican society. They help create strong communities where people care about one another and work together to overcome challenges. These principles are not only taught in theory, but also practiced in everyday life. For high school students, learning solidarity and values is essential because they are the future of the society. By practicing respect, responsibility, empathy, and cooperation, young people can help build a more supportive and fair community. When a student helps a classmate participate in community activities or show kindness to others, they are putting these values into action. A small action can make a big difference and they contribute to create a better environment for everyone. And one of these examples about our civic tradition in the schools are the flag ceremonies, singing the national anthem, and learning about heroes and history. That's all for us. I don't know if you have any questions. I will end the presentation and I hope you like our presentation.
Well, Michelle and Mia, that was a very, very impressive. Maybe I should use different adjectives. That was a very impressive uh, presentation. Your English is outstanding. And I certainly compliment your professors and your parents. We're getting applause here on the screen. Now, I don't want to take time away from the questions that our audience has for you. So please go ahead. Let's have some questions.
Okay.
Let's have some questions.
I think nobody have questions. Okay.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. They're just shy. All right. How about in the chat? Yes, here. Luis Gaeta Cuevas. He's Mexican. He wants to ask about your point of view.
Okay, my point of view of Mexico or of what kind of thing?
Okay.
Um
Please, let me ask for a more. Just a moment. Just going to write down his question. We have to have a little patience on these North American operations. How much do you think that the teachings of important values have affected Mexico's sense of patriotism? That is a question from Alexa Hinojosa.
okay, well, in our classes, like in high school, these values that I mentioned in our presentation are very important, and they are also involved in the Mexico history about our heroes and about like our important events that happen in our history. So I think it is very important to respect all of the actions that the heroes of the independence made. And I think that is the way that it affects the Mexico sense of patriotism, because they develop like a strong feeling of feeling proud about being Mexican. And it is a combination like values teach it in the schools, the history, and also how we celebrate our traditions. And
Very good. Alexa says, thank you.
okay,
And do you want to add something, Mia?
they made another question
Yes,
for.
as you know, of the three countries, we are the only one that doesn't speak English. How do you think this points affect the way the people communicate in Mexico? They have to learn English for communication, and how will this affect the countries in the future? Luis Galleta Cuevas.
Okay, let me think a little bit. Okay. Well, it is obviously more difficult being the other country that doesn't speak English, but I think now in the public, me and my partner Michelle are in a public school named University of Guadalajara. And now the level of English that you can learn here in our university is very very good, but not only in your in our university, also in other public schools. I think that now it is difficult, obviously, to learn another language, but now nowadays the government give us like good tools to improve our English level and to have a good how can I say, like having a good communication, not only learning like grammatical structures.
Well, Luis seems to agree with you. He is also from La Universidad de Guadalajara.
Yes, it's such a good university.
Do you know him?
Yes, no. I don't know Luis Gaeta.
Here's Eduardo Serrano Leyva. Has Mexican patriotism changed with the new generations, with the new, with the young people?
Um, I think yes, uh, but not too much because this feeling of being proud of of our country is like a feeling that all the Mexicans have. Maybe it changed a little bit because of the new, how can I say it, like the new generations, because how our teachers and how our partners share us like the Mexican traditions, but I don't think that the patriotism is how can I say less strong than on the other times. But I think it's also very very strong nowadays, like in the young people.
Good. Well, I want you people to see I have my lapel pin, U.S. Mexico. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
It's right there. Okay. That's what I wear. My wife is Mexican. Now we're
Oh.
going. Thank you, Mia and Michelle. Our next speaker is Shannon Arana from Immaculate Heart Central High School. She is a junior also, and we're very much looking forward to her talk. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We had a question from Blessing Coadio. Excuse me, Shannon, 1 minute. Blessing Coadio asks to everyone, do you think that Mexicans outside of the country are proud to demonstrate their nationalism and talk about their indigenous roots? So, Mia, can you take that, or can you get back in? Did you hear the question?
I know what.
I can answer this.
Good.
Well, I think that it doesn't. It's about feeling proud, but it's also about being embarrassed. Or sometimes you're embarrassed to say, "Where are you from?" From the stereotypes that might have the other people about the country you are from, especially with all the social media things that we see, that you might see from Mexico or that stuff. I think if you are a Mexican outside of the country, it's sometimes you may feel a little afraid of what they could think about the country you are from, and the in this case about maybe you say you are indigenous roots or something like that. I think it it can be different in each people, but I think in general, the Mexican people, it's I don't know how to express it, like afraid of saying the country they are from because of the stereotypes that the people might have about us.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for the question, Blessing. So now, Shannon, are you oh, one more question. I'm sorry. Come back. One more question from Luis Galleta Cuevas. How can social context affect the way we learn English here in Mexico? For example, the people who compliment and make jokes against the people that actually know a lot of English. Are you still with me?
Um, I think it depends. Mm, it I think it affects a lot the social context because even if it's a subject in school in English, it can be different for each people. Uh,
Yes. It could depend
yeah.
on what kind of school you're going to. If it's a school that has, a lot of money or a school that doesn't have a lot of money, how the quality of the education. Here's another question from Brian Salvador Cardenas. Which ones do you think are the most important values to keep? A healthy patriotism?
I think it's the most important for me. It would be respect because I think it's sometimes a person can say I am a patriotic person, but it offends other cultures or other countries to make their country look cooler or bigger. But it's not about it. Being patriotic, it doesn't mean about being better than other country. It means about feeling proud of the country are from and also to respect the other countries and the people are from that country. So I think it's respect mostly. Yes.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, Shannon, we are ready for your talk, very eager to hear it. And as I've already introduced you from Immaculate Heart Central High School, and you are a junior. Take care, Shannon.
Thank you. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So, good afternoon. First, let me introduce myself. As Mr. Willis said, I attend Immaculate Heart Central High School in New York State. I'm a military kid, and I'm very proud of being one. I've lived sort of all over the world, but I have gained a huge international perspective of the world, and I am very honored to be here presenting today about nationalism, patriotism, and solidarity, and I'm excited. Okay, so to understand this prompt, I had to define these terms. So nationalism, I thought it runs the country, but it's not just pride. It's the administrative mechanism of the state that we must scrutinize to ensure that it manages power fairly. And patriotism, it fosters a sense of belonging, but it's not blind loyalty. It's the critical love, like the accountability required to hold our nation to its stated ideals. And solidarity advances the nation. It's the essential method for progress. It's the active collective work for dismantling the structural barriers that divide us. And so when I was looking back at our history, I remember learning in elementary school it was a very sanitized narrative about the country. And I I did some readings like from the suggested readings, like specifically Case, The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. Like when I read it, the US really does have like a hidden social hierarchy, the case that we have to acknowledge before we have to discourse, like a civil discourse. As well, the indigenous people's history of the United States. We have to include the original history of North America to understand our society and identity, such as the Native Americans who have been here before all of the immigrants from Europe arrived. And recognizing these is the first step towards real change. And the path forward, this brings us to the civic mandate. We cannot build stable solutions on a faulty foundation. This means shifting from passive pride to informed critical engagement. Our responsibility is not to defend the status quo, but to identify the cracks in our system and work in solidarity to repair them. True progress requires us to be architects of our own future, not just heirs of a past that we don't fully understand. So, in conclusion, nationalism, patriotism, and solidarity are not just words. They're the tools of our democracy, and by applying this critical framework, we move away from the passive pride that ignores our history and towards the critical accountability that allows us to fix it. My challenge to you is simple. Stop being a passive heir to this country's history, but start being the architect of its future. True citizenship isn't just like a status, it's the everyday active work of building a more equitable future. Thank you.
So Shannon, that was a wonderful presentation, excellent presentation. And I would really like to see what kind of questions we have from the other panelists or the chat. So I'm going to repeat Brian Salvador. He asked this question: which ones do you think are the most important to keep a healthy patriotism?
Which what? The
Which values are the most important to keep a healthy patriotism?
I think we need respect to keep a healthy patriotism because when we are patriot, like we love our country, but we have to respect like other people's ideals about like the views on our country, and by doing that, we can be more like interconnected and we could understand each other better.
Thank you. What other questions might we have from the panelists or in the chat? Wonderful presentation. We are going to be sharing these presentations independently. Thank you, Shannon. We're going to be sharing these, as I wrote to you earlier, and distribute them. Oh, hold on, Shannon. Here's some questions. Lilia Curley, what are you proud about in your country?
Well, I'm Peruvian American, but I was born in the United States, so I understand a little more like about the American values. And while living abroad, I remember conversing with lots of students from like internationally, and they asked me the same question. And I think just how confident we are, like globally, like we top some charts and we love collaborating with other nations on topics, but now like we may have like taken a turn, but like that like just collaborating in general, I admire that, and that like has inspired me to start being more collaborative with other people from internationally and go into a career of diplomacy to try and better our country and try to make the world more peaceful and more in harmony.
Well, Shannon, we certainly invite you to become more active in our foundation as a lead up to your career in diplomacy. Blessing Coda has a question. Do you think especially high school students are scared to move from passive pride to active civic engagement and become architects of the future of the USA? Thank you, Blessing.
Passive pride. Hold on, let me think a little bit. I think some we as the because we're the future generation and we may feel a little bit scared just to like make a small change because we already have this whole foundation and some people don't want to change that. But what most of the population here need to understand is change is good. Like if we think that something needs to be modified or just change in general, we can do that.
Now, how much importance do you give to solidarity in the U.S.? Luis Gaeta is asking you that.
When you mean by here, you mean the United States, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Solidarity.
When I think of solidarity, I like visualize like a community that's together, and the United States really values that, and it's quite important, I would say, yes.
And we have a question here from Mina to everyone. Do you believe that American patriotism and values are similar or different in contrast to other countries?
American patriotism is just like being very proud of like where you're from, and I believe that everybody is very proud of where they're from. So it's quite similar to other countries, I would say.
And let's see, that's it. Okay, thank you so much. So thank you, Shannon. We are now going to hear from Valentina Suarez, who is a student at the Universidad Panamericana in Mexico City. Thank you, Valentina.
Okay, sorry, there's a little bit of background noise, but I will be answering the question of the common ground and the shared values between the classical and the contemporary interpretations of Mexican culture and shared history. Oh, sorry, I'm history. I'm a philosophy major, and as a philosophy major, I've learned a lot about how to take some pride in the ideas that have shaped the way our country works politically, socially, and culturally. So it's really nice to hear all of your presentations about patriotism, and I think we should also like take pride on how our countries have been working and how they've come to be what they are right now. And so I'm going to start. So in order to understand Mexico, we have to accept that it is a fundamental paradox. Our history has been marked by deep fractures like the conquest, the independence, the reform laws, and the revolution. Each of these moments have represented a violent break with the past, a way of saying this season has ended here and now we need to start over. As a result, we have very different interpretations of what Mexico is and should be. On one side, we have traditional visions, like the 17th century way of thought that was more Creole, Novo Hispanic scholasticism. And we also had conservatism with people that were not so radical. But on the other side, we have radical liberalism and Mexico's socialism, and also philosophy of liberation later in history. The question I want to answer today is that if there is a solid ground of shared values beneath the surface of this conflict. And my thesis is that yes, these shared values revolve around three core axes. It is the search of identity, social justice, and the reconciliation between tradition and modernity. Okay, let's start with the first value, the question of identity. From the traditional or classical interpretation, we have the phenomenon of criollism in the 17th century. As we see in figures like Carlos de Sigüenza y Góngora and Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. There's a conscious effort to reclaim what is American. Think about Sor Juana. In 1680, when the new viceroy arrives, she writes the Neptuno Allegorico. What does she do here? She takes a pagan god, Neptune, and connects him with the goddess Isis, and above all the places, the Virgin of Guadalupe. It's cultural kaleidoscope that mixes the indigenous, the Spanish, and the Catholic. She's saying, ours is valuable, it has dignity, it deserves a place in the universe. And then also Sigüenza, in his Theater of Political Virtues, tells the viceroy, to govern Mexicans well, you need to know the virtues of the ancient Mexican monarchs. He uses indigenous history to build a distinct identity. Now, from the contemporary and critical interpretation, we move to the Ateneo de la Juventud in 1909 with figures like José Vasconcelos and Alfonso Reyes, who were fed up with Porfirian positivism, and they saw us like a foreign dogma that was put into the Mexicans. But then Vasconcelos proposes this concept of the cosmic race, which is mestizo identity that symbolizes the indigenous, the Spanish, and the universal. Later, there's the Imperium group with Antonio Caso and Emilio Uranga, which analyzes the ontology of the Mexican, which is basically being in between that defines our condition, that is not only being one thing, but being in between many, many things. So the question is the same as the 17th century. What does it mean to be Mexican? And the answer changes. It's no longer, it was before, it was theological, but now it was more existential. And the shared value is that the centrality of identity becomes a cultural problem. Then let's move on to the second value. Social justice and the option for the vulnerable. From the classical tradition, we have the example of Alonso de la Veracruz in the 16th century. And these friars arrived with the whole Aristotelian Thomistic tradition coming from Spain. But when faced with the American reality, universal principles like natural law or the common good forced them to ask what had happened for them to be there. Was the conquest just, or was this was this new way of life and the discovery of the Americas something that we should be talking about? And this wasn't only abstract theory. It was philosophy put to the service of questioning actual reality. And there's a genuine concern for the dignity of the human person, regardless of their origin. Now, for contemporary and critical interpretations, we see the same thing, but with different tools. In the 19th century, there is the emergence of Mexican socialism with figures like Plotino Rodacanati and Francisco Salacosta, who bring ideas from Fourier and Proudhon, but adapt them to the Mexican reality. It is like an appropriation of socialism in the 19th century. And they were seeking the liberation of the peasantry, the dissolution of haciendas, which were considered like feudal institutions, and communal land ownership. And there's also a radical critique of liberalism that affects the way of indigenous people, how indigenous people were relating to the owners of the haciendas. And then later, in the 20th century, Enrique Dussel and the philosophy of liberation take this even further. They critique European philosophy and say that it has sort of a blindness to the oppressed other. And they propose a philosophy that emerges from a reality of Latin America's marginalized people. So there's a parallel I see between the 16th century scholastic humanism and then the 19th and the 20th century appropriating the socialism that was mostly being worked on in Europe. And then the last value that I would like to address is the way we have created creative reconciliation throughout history between tradition and modernity. And this comes obviously from the fractures that we have lived as a country. Like the history of our country has had so many fractures that we've always had the need to have a reconciliation between tradition and modernity. And from the classical tradition, we have the examples of the 18th century Jesuits, especially Francisco Javier Clavijero, who was expelled by Charles III in 1767. And all the Jesuits ended up in Italy, and they were working in the exile there, writing about history and ancient history of Mexico. And he writes it from having the experience of living both in Mexico and in Europe. So he writes it using European tools of the Enlightenment. The same tools that the encyclopedists were using, and many figures of the Enlightenment as well. And he uses them precisely to defend what these thinkers of the Enlightenment were attacking. That was the rationality and the capacity for abstraction of pre-Hispanic cultures. He does a demonstration through linguistic analysis, and there's an example that, for example, in Nahuatl, there are many words for metaphysical concepts like essence or goodness, truth, reflection. And so it indicates that it is not only a primitive language as it was lived before. So it is a language capable of the highest abstraction, and it doesn't only use words, but also images, actual drawings to be written. And then from the contemporary and critical interpretation, we see sort of like the same dynamic in 19th century liberalism with figures like Moran, Zavala, who want to break with the colonial past and implement French and American models that are liberal. But then comes O'Gorman, who is actually a very critical, because he sees that there is no Hispanic political survival. And he says that the past doesn't disappear, but it persists in a sort of inertia. And then later in the 20th century, the Ateneo de la Juventud criticizes the positivism for being a foreign dogma. And they propose another illustration, right? Like a return to the Greeks, to a freer humanism that has a dialogue with the Mexican reality without only imposing foreign categories. Yeah, I guess before I conclude, I just want to address something directly to all of you, whether you are from Mexico, United States, or Canada, because understanding these values helps you understand not only your neighbor, but also yourself. The Mexican struggle with identity is an abstract. It's lived every day in conversations about migration, cultural appropriation, and what it means to be a Latin person living in the United States, or living in Canada, or living anywhere outside in the world. And the Mexican commitment to social justice explains why certain political movements resonate so deeply. And also the Mexican tension between tradition and modernity is something that Mexican history has dealt with throughout history, but now we all are experiencing it with a globalized world. Like how has it been before certain technologies have come to be the norm? So I think this is gives a lot of ground to think about our struggles, and it's not only for Mexico or for North America in general. And now to close, I want to emphasize something important. And it is that I am not saying that there aren't deep differences between these traditions, like between Sor Juana's Catholic monarchy and then the 19th century liberals. There's obviously an abyss. But if we look carefully, we find that there's threads of continuity across the centuries. Because there, I argue that there is actually an identity that unites us. And we've always had this recurring commitment for justice of the marginalized because we've always felt marginalized in our own way around the world. And then these three values are the core of living Mexican philosophy traditions. And it fits on both the classics and its critics, which I think it's very valuable. And I guess that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Valentina. When did you start studying philosophical history? When you were like 10 years old?
No, like 2 years ago. I've had very good teachers, honestly. People who have always had like they've studied Aristotelian and European philosophy, but then they've turned their heads to Mexican philosophy, and I think it is very important to be informed to do philosophy. I think it is really important to be informed about how your country has moved throughout history.
Well, you gave us a profound insight, and I learned a lot from your presentation. I'm curious. Let's have some questions for Valentina. Who has some philosophical questions, or are you all blown away by the depth of her insights? How would you describe that you say about Mexico has a paradox in only one word? Luis Galleta Cuevas is challenging you to find one word to explain the Mexican paradox.
I mean, I think I'm not going to be original in it. I'm going to just repeat what has been said. But it is basically, it is a Nahuatl, a word in Nahuatl.
A word in the Nahuatl language.
Yes, and it's Nepantla, which explains what has been what we've dealt with. It's being in the middle of so many conflicts, but also like having the need to power through because
having the need to
we
what?
have to power through wars and internal conflicts, but
and external influences.
It's yeah, external influences always.
Terrific. Now, Valentina, wonderful. I cannot wait to share your presentation as well as everybody else's. You've done a wonderful job. And later on, I want to know who your professors are. Okay? Because I know many people at the Panamericana in philosophy. Now, I also have, I want to go back to Shannon. Shannon, are you still in the meeting?
Yes.
We have a question from Blessing about your presentation. Just a moment. Let's go back up in the chat. And there it is. As an aspiring diplomat, are you scared to make changes for the US because of other people disagreeing with the changes you want to make? How will you stay motivated?
I like this question a lot. Thank you. I'm not scared because I'm sure there's so many ideas, and there will always be somebody, there's going to be somebody that's against your idea, but you can't focus on that, and I plan not to focus on it. But when I think of like how to stay motivated, like I usually think of why are they against it? So when I focus on like the why behind these disagreements, like I realize like I'm representing something larger than myself. So I'm just not listening like to an argument, but like when you mean people, like I understand like internationally, but so I'm identifying like the interest of another nation, and that's like my love for diplomacy in like a little nutshell.
Yeah, I see you as a diplomat. I
Thank
see you
you.
there. You have the personality and the
Thank you.
values. Now, let's go back to Valentina. Blessing has a question for you too. How do you think Mexicans have grown or outgrown the third struggle in identity and belonging, or have they done so?
Well, yeah, I think we haven't done so yet. But we we have looked at how certain patriotic values, I think, have been harmful to other countries. And we try to stay away from that. We don't take too much pride because we know how violent our history has been and how oppressing for certain groups, for women, for people of color. Everything has been like really, really harsh, like anywhere in the world. But I think our identity, we like to think it more like in cultural and yeah, I guess with cultural values, we like to be identified with each other and how we relate to other other people in the world. I think that
Very,
that's how we.
very good. Here's another question. Thank you, Blessing. If you could change anything about your country, what would it be?
Yeah,
And
I think
don't say the United States.
I think as
You can
we've
say it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
there are many things that have been um oppressing coming from um the north
Yes, it's true. It's
in all its
true.
sense.
It's
And
true.
that is what Enrique Dussel says, that there's like some sort of inherent oppression in being from the south. But I think definitely I would change the thing, the violence that we recur to when there's conflict and when there's like need. Um, but it's obviously all coming from um the struggle that there is in power and poverty. But we have a lot of natural richness. So yeah, I think I would change so how the government distributes that and how violent conflicts happen.
Good answer. Now from Mina, she says, do you think the Mexican philosophy has changed over time due to external events, or are there some values that are still taught and implemented in current philosophy today?
Well, I think Mexican philosophy has changed uh over time due to um the state of like the whole geopolitical state of the world, you know? So I think obviously we don't think of ourselves as as a very philosophical country, but for example, like comparing ourselves to Europe or to the United States, we don't have like um that sort of fame. Um, but definitely European and um Western thought have has shaped the way Mexican philosophy is done. And but also we have a lot of Baroque history and we implement that a lot.
Wonderful. And thank you to our the people in our chat. I really hope that everyone in the chat will be continuing with future congresses, and we still have several speakers to go. But before you're in and out, I want to make sure that you please write to president@naeif.org to remain in contact with me and to make sure that you are involved in our activities and future congresses. At this time, we are going to have a 20-minute break, and then we will be getting back together. So this is your chance to have your, as we say in Mexico, comida. Okay? I will repeat the email and website, okay, in the chat. Thank you. We'll take our break. Welcome back to our third North American Student Congress of the North American Educational Initiatives Foundation. Our next presentation will be given by Juan Pablo Cruz Diaz, who studies philosophy at the Universidad Panamericana as well. Juan Pablo, are you ready to begin?
Hi, Ted. Yeah,
How are you?
well, and you? Very
Very good.
well. Yeah, so I'm gonna share here. It, let's see. Yes. You tell me if it sees the sharing screen.
I don't see it yet. There it is.
Yeah, great. So, well, good afternoon to everybody. I'm gonna talk to you notions of um, nationalism, patriotism, and solidarity in the classical traditional Western education and the meaning of them for the Mexican citizens. No, it's the first time I do this, so if I say something wrong, please forgive me and also tell me. um, well, first for starting, no, I'm going to talk about nationalism, no, which I understood nationalism as a nation state which can also carry ethnic implications, no, and it involves the human, the citizen, in this case, the Mexican, no. Um, this feel of belonging to Mexico is influenced by many supporting points, no? Mexico is well known for its vast and unique culture, and it is true that much of what Mexico is has its starting points in other countries, no? But also, indigenous people left an indelible mark on the history of Mexico and therefore on Mexicans. Um, in Mexico, the notion of nationalism is born in the light of the independent project to break free from the Spanish crown, no? And from that, there are at least 2 points, no, two sides of the coin. Those who speak poorly of the Spanish colony and those who consider it the moment in which both cultures, indigenous and Spanish, converge to give rise to a much more complete cultural and existential richness, no? As if when we as if one were talking about a complementation, no? Um, I quickly mentioned that in Mexican that the Mexican people had a strong moment in which the indigenous lands of Chiapas rose up in arms. No, it's the famous Ejército Zapatista de Liberación Nacional, no, which was created, no, as an armed group to claim the rights of indigenous peoples, no, and it was a very strong movement, and it makes a lot of things in the moment that it appears, no, and nowadays, talking about indigenous people in Chiapas, unfortunately, but not in all cases, I will say, and that's an advice, not in all cases, implies talking about violence, pornography, trafficking of children and women, and repression. And this is not a negative propaganda because I recently was in Chiapas, and it is a joy to visit so many beautiful things in that state. But I think it is a very important thing, and I shall not say that it was the government. I'm not giving you this, but something was saw in the indigenous people, and it was that they knew many things that were not only intelligent but dangerous for the kind of thinking of the metropolis, no, for the modernist thinking. And my mama told me about a time that he was in La Selva Lacandona, which is in Chiapas, no, teaching and making some educational formation for the people that were there, no. In the moment at 6 o'clock, it was already dark, and you go to the vet because there was no light, there was no, and this today, no, this appears, no, this two position of the of of the indigenous people in Chiapas, no, that it is only a case, no, appears as an anachronistic paradox to the project of independence of 1821, no. It seems like Mexicans again become dependent, no, but this time it looks like worse, no, and not only the indigenous people, but the Mexican in general, no. This idea of nationalism may come, no, I say may because it is not the wholly true, but from and then this notion in our philosophy, know that there is a moment when the man conceives himself within a world in which there is a giver of life. No, it's dador de la vida. No, it's a fundamental conception in our philosophy. No, and this begins to question the things of the world, no, their meaning and their relevance in all of existence. And the Mexican is full of love for his nation that does not come from sorry, as I say again, now the Mexican is full of a love for his nation that does not come from a perfect race or from a perfect notion of a Mexican life, unique, not made to be shared and different, but rather comes from a history in which the following is always maintained, which is there is a life that is given to us, and from that we can give and grant to others from the little that we are, but from the much that precedes us. No? And that perhaps that doesn't indeed makes us much as beings, no? Then I'm gonna talk to you about patriotism, no? That I understood patriotism as an implication of loyalty or responsibility to the country, no? Um, or it is a topic that it is too much discussed or too little discussed, no? It's at the same time, no? But Mexicans love their homeland because the history behind it is a history of equals, no, which extends to our day, and in which the notion of our ancestors, no, this notion that is very present in the whole life of the Mexican, no, those who never leave us and who transcend the barriers of time to talk about them, from their work, from their words, from the family, from the experience, no. And this is a very important notion, no, very relevant notion that, yes, give a love for the country, no, that it is not only like love but also um, uh, comes to our responsibility, no, to the to the country, no. And it is true that Mexico, like many other countries, has been undermined by countless international proposals, no. It is a great starting point, Mexico, for many things, but there is always an international external proposal on top that takes the control of the situation. And not always, but most of the time it happens, no. To give an example that, I don't know if it's correct or if it's precise. No, I give it because I hear it recently and I thought could serve. In the 30s, the reception of Heidegger, a philosopher in Mexico, sought to ground the essence of the Mexicans in Heidegger's thought. No, but this Heidegger's thought is from a German philosopher who already experienced the German decadences of 23 and 29. And with friends, the first question that comes was like, how could a thought like this, no, that we're not saying like was bad, or we're not giving it like a moral perception, but how a thought like this, no, could help in consolidating the essence of the Mexican, no. Yeah, it's like Mexico always receives like external proposals for a lot of things, but I think that however that happened, no, and even with all this in mind, no, the Mexican never lets anyone not only speak badly about his country, but he shares love for his country. No, it is it is shared by a very strange presence, no, by a very strange love, no. There is this song composed that says that is called Mexico Lindo, no, and it is beautiful and beloved Mexico. If I die far away from you, let them say that I am asleep and they bring me here. No, it's like this love from Mexico that if you die in everywhere else, no, you bring here because there is this love from the country, no. Then I talking a little about solidarity, no. That is there is a notion that is commonly understood as let me change of as a value, a fundamental value of human life, no, that is linked to compassion and generosity. But in Mexico, this meaning is taken to the extreme, no, and not in the bad way, but in the positive way. No, Mexicans can do anything to rain or shine, come hell or high weather. There is a feeling of hospitality and service to others that many times does not come from the idea of helping, um, like helping itself or a charitable action, but from recognizing our realities. Like, hey, look, I get up every day at 4 or 5 in the morning to work and provide for my household and not to fall into laziness or a sense of meaningless in life. But there is also someone else like me who's pursuing the same dreams in a way I cannot just live in there with their broken down car or in their need. No, there is um the common situation is my car battery dies, no, and immediately there are 3 or 4 people at the back of the car pushing it so you can start the battery, no. And um in the end they will tell you like, cuídate carnal, take care bro, and you probably will never see them again, but there they are, no. Like it is this recognition of a reality that it is shared by all the people in Mexico, no. And yeah, I think that is also a point of the solidarity in this context, no. And just for go by the end, no. I think that the point in favor of the Mexico and of Mexico and the Mexicans, no, as even when Mexico has many foreign or Western proposals, no, educational, political, economic proposals, all these things that is happening now about the war and a lot of things. It also leaves Mexico and the Mexicans from a past, no, the indigenous one, that has allowed it to permeate this reality with a different perspective, no, a perspective that we are not very um, alive sometimes to talk about it, but in the very ground, no, it permeates my reality, it permeates reality of a lot of people, no, and it is a thing that we cannot just like forget for a moment. That makes us Mexican. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Yes, Juan, Pablo, thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation, and we keep learning more and more about our neighbors, something that, at least here in the United States, it's something that there just isn't enough time spent on that. So, do we have some questions in the chat, or for here's Mina says, do you believe solidarity is a big part of Mexican culture?
Well, yeah, I think solidarity comes as a consequence of this recognition of Mexican reality. So yeah, I think solidarity is a big part of this culture of the Mexican that comes from the idea of recognition of reality. I can like roll out some other things, but from the beginning I say that.
Excellent. Excellent. How about some more questions from the chat or from our fellow panelists? Here's Blessing. Do you think that a Mexican immigrant in the United States would feel a difference between solidarity and community in their home country and the US?
Um, I haven't yet been in the US, so I don't know how to talk about it, but um, I don't want to say like something wrong because there are like two very different kind of cultures, no? Mexican, as I know, no, it's always like open to the house, no, to come to, you can talk someone in the street for help, no, and I will say like also in the US, no, and but I think that there is a strong feeling, no, that a family, and I don't only say would I don't only would say like a Mexican immigrant in the US, but every immigrant, no, would say like, yeah, there for a needed or for something, I have to stay in the US, but there is a love that stays, no, with us in the heart, in the very profound of ourselves, no, that lead us to really miss the the essential in the place in where we were born. So yeah, I think they could find a difference between those cultures, no?
Wonderful. This Congress has been outstanding for all the number of questions we've been getting in the chat and from our panelists. Thank you very much, Juan Pablo.
Oh, thanks to you, Ted. Thanks to you for the invitation, and the confidence, everything. It's been a great journey, and I hope I can keep here learning
Yep, we're
things.
definitely going to stay in touch, and there's more
Yeah,
activities to come and more congresses. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you to all also.
Our next talk will be by Rhythm Basari. He's going to talk about, is it possible for students with different values to join together in efforts on behalf of others? How might this collaboration take place, especially to benefit those less for minorities? There we go. I got the question right.
Hey
Thank you, Basari.
everyone. So a little intro about me is I'm currently a junior in high school at Woodward Academy, and yeah, I'm excited to be here. Sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. So the question I'm going to be addressing is it possible for students with different values to join together um in efforts on behalf of others? So I like to give like three historical examples. So one of them is the student nonviolent civil movement, which was it's basically like a conglomeration of students that from like different like racial, religion, even like socioeconomic um backgrounds, and they were united to basically expand on rights for Black Americans. And uh, th and this is just one example. And then another example was March for Our Lives. So March for Our Lives, they basically offered school safety, where like college students or high school students they would basically protest in like streets around the U.S. And so that was a pretty important aspect in terms of helping people out, right? And then lastly, the United States Against Sweatshops, or USAS, helped with fair labor laws. And this is important because it allowed people from obviously like different backgrounds to help people who can't afford to have or like to participate in like resistance stuff like that because sometimes people don't get the opportunity to uh I guess advocate for themselves because they have so many responsibilities in their own lives. Okay, and then um, so I want to say about like what they all have in common. So what they have in common is essentially a common goal because they're all essentially like coming together to advocate, to protest, to help out an issue. So, for example, Student Nonviolent Committee helped with rights for Black African Americans, and despite their differences in their different values, they all came together to advocate for those rights. Also, they're student led. So I think students have the most time, I think, in terms of like not everything's set in stone and they can explore lots of things in general. Like they could do different majors, different opportunities, they could do they can volunteer, and they have a lot more flexibility than adults do. And so initiatives being student led often allows for a greater impact, um, especially when like um, there's restrictions on time and resources, because students have a lot of network too, because students are going to college, they're going to school, they meet with a lot of people, right? And so there's a lot of capability of making groups, I guess, like on behalf of others. And then to go off on that, oh, sorry, doing an initiative on behalf of others. So, as I mentioned before, many people don't have the time to uh, I guess, advocate for their cause sometimes because they have a lot of responsibilities, right? So like say say like there's protests happening, right? And you're affected by the issue that they're protesting of, but you still have to take care of your family. What if you had like a baby brother or like someone important to you, right? To take care of. Then sometimes you can't participate in all these resistant movements or um uh all this advocacy when um when you have all those responsibilities, right? And so I think taking initiative on behalf of others helps out not only like you, but also a lot of people who are also struggling the same issue as you as well. So I think it's really important for, I guess, like maybe like us as students to help out people who are not as fortunate. Okay. And then the benefits of different values and diversity. So um So diversity and different values, they bring about inclusivity. So I kind of like to think of initiatives as a coding project. So let me give you an example. So think about like a website, okay? And in a website, there there's like text, right? But but sometimes you need to consider people who are not able to see that well close up in their computer, right? And so sometimes you need to make the text bigger. And say like if I made my slides text like very small, some people wouldn't be able to see that, right? And so it kind of allows for thinking more about your wider audience and including them more, right? And like, say you have people from different cultural backgrounds. So, people from different cultural backgrounds, they know about their culture and like kind of like their people, right? And so um it kind of helps tailor their initiative to um to their people, if that makes sense. Like it brings in a wider audience um to your project or your initiative in general. And then I want to talk about a personal experience I had. So I was talking to the Jody Foundation, which is a nonprofit that helps Western Kenyan schools. And they basically, so I have a nonprofit, Minorities in STEM, and we're discussing about possible partnerships. And they're talking to me about how schools don't have computers or they don't have technology like we do in North America, right? And so, um, and like just considering that, right, we had to figure out how to accommodate those students who want to have the same opportunities, but cannot because of the limitation of not being able to come on the internet, right? And so, um, like I think having like diversity and different values kind of like brings about aspects that you have not like seen before, right? And another example is Horizons Atlanta. So I volunteered with Horizons, which basically brings students to bridge the opportunity gap for um, uh, like in STEM, right? And so they basically bring high school students to volunteer for K through 8 students. And I think some values that high schools have is that they want volunteer hours, maybe a great thing on their resume and stuff like that, right? But even though they have those different values, they still help with the overall mission of bridging the opportunity gap for students. And so that's kind of a way that differences could align into a group that could essentially help out with an issue. And then second question is how might this collaboration take place, especially from minorities? So as I said before, creating groups and communities that empower one another. So you could always reach out to your friends and like reach out to your professors. There's always there's so many ways to help out uh because all you need to do is like help students out in your community, right? And like um bring about change that would otherwise not be there. And minorities especially are hurt uh in terms of like opportunities and resources. And so like students like us could potentially like help um offer those opportunities and resources that previously they did not have. And also volunteering at an existing organization is very helpful too, because an organization that's already established can allow you to help out people more easily, connect with more students who are undermined more, and also like uh, existing organizations are already like established, so it also builds credibility towards your side as well. So stats initiatives. So right now in STEM, around 8 to 9% of African Americans are in the STEM workforce and 15% for Hispanics. And so bridging the opportunity gap, like Horizons Atlanta and other organizations like that do this. And also, I want to talk about Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is actually they're not really represented in terms of the Senate and House representative because they are a U.S. territory. And so often they cannot, um, I guess, advocate about their problems, or like they can't really, or they can advocate about the problems, but they don't have too much influence, I guess, on the legislation as states would have, right? And so, many initiatives like Chef Jose Andres and World Central Kitchen offered 3.5 million meals after Hurricane Maria, or Jennifer Lopez and Mark Anthony had a concert of $35 million, which they donated to Puerto Rico. And so those are kind of some ways that initiatives could help out a minority group like um, um, Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico, and yeah, essentially help those people out. And then lastly, less funding for minorities institutions. So it was said that public schools had about $700 less who are majority Black people, or sorry, students than white students, and which in turn causes lower proficiency in math and reading. And so some institutions like Learn to Be and yeah, and other tutoring organizations have helped those students raise their proficiency. And so I want to talk about my organization, Minorities in STEM. So at Minorities in STEM, um, we also bridge the opportunity gap for STEM, for minority groups as well. And so we were founded in Woodward Academy in 2024. Uh, and we currently hold 19 chapters and we impacted 70K plus students. And we have multiple partners like Horizons, Jody Foundation, and more. And so we offer free resources and like research. Yeah, and if you want to get involved, just let me know. So our example of our work is that we helped with Horizons Atlanta, a Word Academy, where we impacted K through 5 students in robotics. And so that was like one of our ways of how we helped out bridge the opportunity gap in STEM and help minority groups um, you're right. Help minority groups learn more about STEM fields and just ensuing more interest in them, right? Because sometimes they're not even exposed to programs like this, where they have robotics materials, where they see different occupations that they could potentially have. And so just instilling more interest in them could really make an impact on their lives. And yeah, so there's just some links if you want to see. I know Mr. Willis will share this later, but yeah, thank you.
Very good rhythm. So we
Thank
go from the general idea of seeking common purpose to the very specific activities of young people, high school students.
Mhm.
Were you one of the founders 2 years ago?
For what? So I'm the founder of Minorities in STEM.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2024.
How old were you when you did that?
I was in ninth grade or ninth and 10th grade. So it was in that summer.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You have a very powerful story for your college admissions.
Yeah, I mean, it's me. I mainly just want to do it for the to help people out. So
Yes, you didn't do it for yourself,
right.
but um, it's remarkable.
Thank you. Thank you.
And here we have a question from Lessing Coadio. What inspired you to start Minorities in STEM?
Yeah. So when I started in Minorities in STEM, uh I was in the robotics team since like eighth grade and then moved and so the shift from middle school to high school, there's a new like a whole set like new area of robotics. And so um during that time there was no diversity in our robotics team. Like it was like me and like one or two other like minority groups like black or like Hispanic people or students, and like all the other people were all white. And I did a survey at my school, and that was like in every like STEM affiliated team or club. And so um after seeing that, I was like, there must be some way that I could help out with this. And I also volunteered with Horizon Atlanta before, like prior to founding my organization. And they kind of kickstarted the idea of this is more than just my school. This is like globally. And because of this, I started Minorities in STEM. Yeah.
And did you do the is it a foundation?
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit.
So you went through all of the paperwork and the thing with the government?
So, there's two ways to start a nonprofit. So, one is you could do a 503 where like you officially establish with the government, or you can do a fiscally sponsored where you basically allow a like another nonprofit fiscally sponsor you. And so, I our organization is fiscally sponsored from Hat Club, where like it's completely free. Like you just need to register with them and like have a call, and you can like register your initiative, and they give like perks, like free domain for 1 year, and stuff like that. So
What is it called?
Hat Club,
Hat Club?
Hack.
Oh, Pack Club. How do you spell that?
Here, there you go.
Hack Club.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
No worries.
Do we have questions? Here's a question from Mina. How did expand your profit to connect with other organizations? What was the hardest part of doing that or of
Yes.
launching your nonprofit?
Yeah. So, initially when not launching my nonprofit, I was it was definitely slow at first because people didn't really know what minorities in STEM was, and there was like less credibility, right? Because I like few follower count, like there was less upon like what my initiative really was. But then in later on, it started to catch on through marketing on LinkedIn or Instagram. And with partnering, I would simply like reach out through messages or like LinkedIn messages or email, and I would just ask like, would you be open to using our resources from our organization? And they would always be open to that actually. Like mo most of the nonprofits would be open to that because why would they not want more resources? And so yeah, so that's how I kind of expanded my nonprofit. And then we added our programs like free research. We added uh like chapter resources. We had like lots of slides and stuff like that.
The chapters are in high schools.
Yes, and colleges and universities as well.
It's remarkable. Listen, our foundation would certainly want to help you in your growth pattern, and will certainly want to talk to you in a subsequent meeting.
Oh, that's awesome.
What
Yeah.
other questions do we have for Rhythm and his incredible organization? At this time, what I would like to do, we haven't had a chance to do this in the previous congresses. I would like to ask the people who are participating to turn on your screens and we're going to have a general conversation to see what you have learned from today and what are your aspirations, what are your goals, what are your hopes as a result of the Congress. So if you do not mind, please join us in this general conversation for a few minutes, since we have the time available in our registered period of time. So feel free to let me see if I can help you.
Oh, Miss.
Wonderful. Let's see, Juan Pablo. Rebecca, are you still in? Did we lose Rebecca? Ah, good to see you. Rakshith, good.
Well,
So we're just going to do this for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, and then we're going to have your presentation, okay?
okay.
So let's see here. Did Valentina, did we lose Valentina? Anyway, so what can we say here? Shannon, and you can unmute.
I think just learning about the other cultures, like when I listened to the Mexican students' presentation, how they talked about their values and how they taught it in school, I was just amazed about like how those values can shape us as a person and that like we can communicate and collaborate with others. That's like my main takeaway from this conference today.
Outstanding. Please unmute so we can have a general conversation. Everybody, Juan Pablo. So Rakshith, please, you can unmute also. I know you just joined us because you have a busy day. So, and also we can please, people in the chat, feel free to send in questions if you want to participate in this part of the conversation. The So we talked about nationalism. We talked about patriotism. We talked about solidarity. Did you get a sense in the or do you have an opinion of the three countries? Um, what do you think of the three values is the prominent one? Or is that not true? It's a mix. Who wants to go first? Shannon, do you want to take a swing at that?
Okay. I think it's a mix, honestly, because like when I was doing my research, I realized it's like in a circle that they it's not like a cycle, but it's just like the three pillars that sometimes like the nation stands on, in my opinion.
Good. Rhythm?
I think that maybe nationalism is a prominent one because I think that at the end of the day, I think um that if like the country was ever in trouble or something like that,
Yes.
for either of the three, I think the people would always like come together to help that country prosper or help the country whatever at whatever means. Because I think like national pride is a big thing in general, like throughout history of like I know mostly about the US because like that's what we study, but um
So you think the US, it's nationalism.
yeah, I think so.
What about you, Juan Pablo? What do you think?
I also go for a mix. Like there is like this necessity of the nationalism to see something in patriotism and also patriotism to something in solidarity, and because like I say in the presentation, it is not like a perfect race or like a Mexican life, but it is like um this notion of the life that has been shared to us. So from that point, I think it's a mix of that three notions that also are has his foundation or has his fundamental thing or his fundamental essence in what also the Mexican has been construing, constructing, since its, its beginnings, as indigenous people first, and there's the colony, and then all the things that Mexico has been doing now. It's like a mix of
Yes.
essential and of a country, yeah.
So if you travel, I've been able to travel a great deal. I was to Canada once as a young man. I've been to Mexico. I lost count how many times. I lived there in the 90s, and my wife is Mexican, so we go there all the time. We've been married for 20 years. And so if you travel throughout the country, as you know, especially if you go to Texas, the number of American flags and the size of the American flags is simply remarkable, especially in Texas, and the state flag too.
Mm.
Shannon, have you traveled much in the United States? You were an Army brat.
Yeah. This is actually my first year, second year living long term in the United States. I've been living overseas my whole life, but I was
Where
born
have you
here.
been?
Um, Germany, Italy, Armenia, and South Korea.
Wow. My father was in Korea during that war.
Yeah, I researched on that. It's amazing, like the US and ROK alliance today. And I think that's the main thing that inspired me to go into diplomacy. But so when I arrived back to the US, we made like a stop in Dallas, and that's when I really saw the Americana culture. I was like, it's so everything is so big.
Well, that's in
Like,
your face. That's in your face. That's Texas.
Yeah.
That doesn't count. And where do you live now?
I live in upstate New York,
Yeah,
30
so
minutes
that's
away from Canada, actually.
very interesting. Do you go to Canada?
We're actually planning to travel to Canada next month
How
for the first time.
fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And so, where do you want to go to college?
I really want to go to Yale University.
How fun. My father went there.
Wow.
You're not attracted to the Georgetown School of Public Service?
That's my second choice, but Yale has been like a childhood dream of mine, and
Oh, wonderful.
I know about like the SFS school, the Wash School for International Affairs, something like that. Um,
I will also put in a plug for my university, Dartmouth College, which is not that far away from you. And we could talk about that later. Okay. But that's the one that where my heart is, and I'm an alumni volunteer
That's so cool.
for all of you who are in high school. And so let us now please have the presentation by Rashid,
Mhm.
and he is going to talk to us again about finding the shared values. Okay, so let's go to mute and turn off our images and go back to Rashid. Thank you. Okay, Rashid, you have the floor.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Hey everyone, hope y'all are doing well. Before I start, I want to urge you with the question. So, when was the last time you read a piece of research that actually changed the way you saw something and made you think someone actually figured something out? And now I know it too. So, that is what published research is supposed to do, and yet most of the world never gets to participate in that process at all. My name is Rakshit Venkatraman. I'm a freshman at Lambert High School, and I'm here today because I believe we can change that. I'm going to show you how exactly we can do that through joining people with different values. So the question asks, is it possible for students with different values to join together in efforts on behalf of others? How might that collaboration take place, and especially for minorities? The short answer is yes. And Equal Pulse, my nonprofit organization, is proof, not a theory, and it's not a proposal. It's something that already exists and it's really working. So before expanding, a principle founded by Aristotle that I hold very dearly is first principles, and it states that to question something's existence and its origins. So, what does different values really mean? So, before we answer whether students with different values can collaborate, we have to actually sit down with what that phrase means, because I think we can throw it around without really unpacking what it really means. So, different values means different in politics. It means left and right centrist, someone who thinks the government should do everything, and someone who thinks it could do almost nothing. It means different cultures, different religions, and different countries and different priorities. Some people in this room care more about the climate, some people can care more about poverty, and some care about national security, and others can care about faith. Those are real differences. But here's the thing. None of those differences, not a single one, stops a person from believing that suffering is wrong, and health is something every human being deserves, and that is common ground, and that's what Equal Pulse needs to function. So, what does efforts on behalf of others demand? So, the second part of the question is just as important. Efforts on behalf of others. The phrase sounds simple, but it actually is very demanding if you take it seriously. So good intentions are not efforts. I can want something to be better for every researcher in the world and do absolutely nothing about it. Good intentions do not publish someone's paper. They teach a high schooler how to structure a research argument, and they do not get feedback to a student in Nigeria who has never had a mentor and has no idea if their work is any good. Real effort on behalf of others requires three things. Structure, meaning a system that actually delivers the help, not just the desire to help. Access, meaning you actively remove the walls that keep people away, the cost, the language, and the geography, the credentials, the follow through, and the meaning you show up. You review the paper and you mentor the student. You see the work through the publication, That is the bar, and that is exactly what Equal Pulse was designed to clear. So what is Equal Pulse? So Equal Pulse is a free open access medical journal, and we do three things. We publish research at zero cost to authors and zero cost to readers. We focus specifically on healthcare disparity, we focus on global health, and we focus on medical access. And we run research training workshops in lesser developed countries to build local research capacity from the ground up. Our goal is simple, to remove the financial barrier that has always decided whose research gets heard. So, coming to the main problem. Here's why any of this matters. So, it can cost up to $3,000 to publish a single article in a major medical journal. And in my experience, before I founded Equal Pulse, when I tried to submit research of my own, it costed me over $250 just to apply. And meanwhile, over 80% of the world's disease burden exists in low and middle income countries. And the researchers living and working inside those communities, they can afford $0 to publish. So nationalism in academic publishing does not look like a flag, it looks like a paywall. So when prestige and money decide whose research gets published, we do not get science, we get gatekeeping. So can different values unite? The short answer is yes. So here is how. You do not need identical political values or spiritual beliefs to agree that a child in Ghana deserves the same quality of healthcare research as a child in New York. You do not need to agree on everything to agree on that. So Equal Pulse works because we build a structure and a shared purpose, not shared opinion. Open access publishing, training workshops, and a peer review network that connects students across countries and backgrounds. So now we must rethink patriotism. So there are two types. So there's narrow nationalism, meaning that you think that nationalism stops at the border and research is hoarded by wealthy institutions and minority voices like me and others are excluded from the conversation. But there's another type, inclusive patriotism. Pride in your country's ability to help others, and knowledge is freely shared across borders. This means that solidarity means lifting everyone, not just the few. Inclusive patriotism asks, what can we offer to the world? This brings us to the point that the most powerful version of caring about your country is using what you have to lift up people outside of it. This is what solidarity actually looks like in practice. So, solidarity in action. Here's how Equal Pulse actually works. A researcher in a developing country completes a study, Equal Pulse Medical Journal publishes it for free, and peer reviewers from diverse backgrounds across the world engage with the work. And then that research reaches the policymakers, students, and communities who need it the most. Every step in that model is an act of solidarity by a student who chose to show up. What you can do. You do not need a medical degree to be a part of this. So Equal Pulse has three main roles open to students right now: a peer reviewer who reads and evaluates research papers and gives feedback on the researcher. And then there is a mentor, which guides high school students in the US and internationally throughout their first research experiences and help them find their voice in science. And finally, a research ambassador to spread the word to your school and university and recruit more mentors, student researchers globally. So become a mentor. To really unite different values and come together, we must work on a combined and unified goal, and Equal Pulse provides this mission. Our mentors work with high school students in the US and internationally, and many from countries where research mentorship is almost non-existent. You help them develop a research question, structure their paper, review their drafts, and share their own journey. So your story and what you have figured out and what your struggle is more powerful than you probably realize. So become a peer reviewer. As a peer reviewer, you get assigned a paper and read it for clarity and methodology. Write structured feedback and directly influence whether it gets published. It is real, meaningful work that also sharpens your own research skills. Equal Pulse today. As of now, we have over 7 undergraduate volunteers, 5 coming in this week, and we have active partnerships in 5 countries: India, Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria, and Cameroon. And this month, in March 2025, we are hosting our very first workshop and webinar in Kenya. This is not a future plan, and it's happening right now. So how our workshop works. Our workshop model is straightforward. So two or three professors, pathologists, neonatal specialists come in and teach high school students in international countries about healthcare diseases, prevention, and global health disparities. And each individual is assigned a question or a research paper that they then work on, and an undergraduate peer reviewer gives them structured and written feedback, and they have one-on-one sessions to revise their paper for publication. From classroom to published research, this is the main pipeline. The next generation of solidarity does not wait for permission. It publishes, it trains, it lifts others, and it does it for free. To really unite people from different values and different beliefs, we must work on a united goal to make the world a better place. And if you want to be a part of that, Equal Pulse has a place for you. Reach out, get involved, and let's build something that actually matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashith. That was a very, very, very practical presentation. We definitely, as I told to Rhythm, our foundation would definitely like to help you and your organization. I myself personally have many colleagues in medicine, friends, and organizations come to mind, schools. So we would definitely like to help you expand your work and perhaps even in Mexico. So, do we have questions here for Rashid? Can you turn on your video?
Yeah, it says you cannot start your video because it's disabled by the
Just a
host.
minute.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
And how about any questions from the panelists? Anything from the chat? Do I have you on there, Shannon?
Yeah.
And here's a question from Blessing. How old were you when you decided to launch One Pulse?
It's Equal Pulse, but that's fine. Yeah, it started a few months ago. Yeah, I started as a freshman, so yeah.
Are you still a freshman?
Yeah.
So what month did you start?
We started around this mid-January, and that's when we were recruiting people.
So from January to today,
hmm
you have done all these things with how many people?
We have a group of 15 people, and we have 5 more people coming in this week, tomorrow actually, to our organization, yeah.
And they're all from your grade level?
No, no, no. They're undergraduates. So we have 5 undergraduates coming in. And then we have like other people who are in 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade that are helping.
And you have medical people too.
Yeah. We have medical professors.
Forgive me, I asked, are your parents in medicine?
No, my parents are not in medicine now.
It's just remarkable.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, from nothing. I mean, Rhythm, he's look at what Rhythm's done.
Yeah.
And your Rhythm, what age are you?
I'm 17 right now. I'm a junior.
You're a junior in high school.
Yeah.
And then this guy is a freshman. So the two of you are gonna battle it out as far as being man of the year, right? Or person of the year.
Or we can work together into
Yeah,
becoming a whole
Can
team.
you do that,
I am
Rhythm?
looking for a
Yeah, we definitely could. I mean, we have a research like program, so we could definitely like help them out, or like we could
Wouldn't that be a
partner up.
wonderful fruit?
Yeah.
Shannon, you're an international person.
Yes,
Does this sound interesting to you?
it does. I actually created a blog like during last summer about well, specifically for military children, but like I do modify it sometimes like for like just travelers in general, but us military children, it takes of a lot of courage like to adapt because you're moving to a different country and or to a different state, like you have to let go of your friends, you have to let go of your usual your routine. And I just want to tell them like it's some people are doing it like as a young age and up until high school, like in my case. um and it's pretty hard sometimes because you already have your usual routine and you just can't let go. And so that's why I made it just to tell them change is fine. You're going to you will make a new routine, and with that new routine you can even improve like in extracurriculars, or you can even make more connections in your previous posts. So that's why I made my blog, but I have to update a little bit.
Thank you, Shannon. Well, this has been this has been another very exciting meeting, and we're very, very happy that you all participated. Here we are at the end with the survivors. It's hard to hold people for 3 hours, especially at your age level, and you're so busy in so many things, and we want to thank you for being together. And here we are in a very concrete way, having people, high school students, okay, who we really want to have high school students join in our future activities. We're going to have another Congress not too far away, maybe even in April. I'll threaten you with that. And I will coming back to you to ask for possible topics. All right, I will threaten you with that because you have to tell me, I need your feedback. And a potential date could be April 11th. That will be after the holiday, the Easter holiday, but that may interfere with some people's spring holiday, so I have to investigate. And there are several different topics that could be covered. But since Rashid and Rhythm are in touch with many, many peers and young people and even college students, please, we want to partner with you, we want to work together, and we want to have many, many more people involved in our next Congress. Look at the high quality of talks that were in this one. What we're going to do, as I said, we're going to take each talk and make it a separate video, and that would be like a newsletter that we will send very broadly. Understood?
Yeah.
So
And-
if you have a question?
No, I just want to say like if like anyone wants to like start their own like initiative or anything, it's just like let me know and I'll like always help you out with that.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
We are very, very proud of you. Here you are, the youngest, some of the youngest ones. We had somebody else too that was high school, didn't we? And we're very, very proud of you. And we're very, very happy you connected with us. And we don't want the conversation to end. And for all of you, I want to help you get into the colleges of your dreams. Now, here is a question from Mina. Yes, I'm going to answer her thing in the chat. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for being involved, and thank you so much. Oh, here's a question in the chat. Just a minute. I have been here all session, and I just wanted to say thank you to every single one of you. This is Jose Roberto Reyes.
Thank you.
This Congress has made me rethink some things and have a more deep reflection of some others, as well as I learned new things. Thank you all and have a nice day. What a nice thing to say. So you're affecting all of us. You are the future of our hopes and dreams. Take care and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. and spring. Don't forget about your clocks. Okay?
Is it fine if I post my email in the chat if anyone would want to get involved with Equal
Oh,
Pulse?
please, right now. Do that right now. Rhythm, do the same thing if you want. Shannon, if you want future discussions, please feel free to communicate with the chat.
Yes. I'll actually post my blog's website link in the chat. And as well as my email.
Oh, the participants aren't able to see our emails. I think you have to do that, Mr. Wills. You have to copy paste like each one, put it in the chat because our chat is only open to the hosts and panel.
Oh.
So I put in the equal pulse, and that should be there.
Mm-hmm.
It says, oh yeah, it doesn't say it's going to everyone.
Um,
What do you think it is, Rhythm?
I think you need to switch out like where it says two, like host and panelists, you need to switch to everyone, basically.
Okay, let me do it to everyone.
Yeah. And also,
Now,
oh,
please put your information.
you're also gonna share
Everyone.
the slides, right?
What?
You're also gonna share the slides with everyone?
Yeah, I'm going to be your PowerPoints.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. That'll be part of your. We're going to edit them with the live presentation. Okay, we'll just
Okay.
make it into a 10-minute, 12-minute thing that we can share.
Yeah.
So feel
But
free to put your contact information or blog in the chat.
hosts. It's still to host and panelists, I think.
What?
It's still to host and panels. I think
Well,
you have.
I'm going to copy your
Yeah.
information.
No worries. And like or like at least my slides have also like additional like links and stuff like that. So
Yes,
yeah, I mean when you share those, there's
it
like
was on your Them's thing, right?
yeah, they can click on the links and they can go straight to like the registration and stuff like that.
Did I do it right? Rhythm?
Uh, yes. Thank you.
Look at it carefully.
Yes.
And I'm doing Eclipse at hold on. I have to go back higher. Equal pulse.
Yes, that is posted.
Hold on. I want to put it in the for everyone.
Okay.
And Shannon is clever. Who is
Yes.
so clever?
That's my email.
Huh? You're so
That's my
clever, huh?
email.
You make me think of the Cheshire Cat with that smile of yours. Okay, everybody. Thank you, everybody. And have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
We
you.
ended just on time. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you
Okay, you're welcome.
Opportunity. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a
so
good day.
much.
Mina
Bye-bye.
says thank you. Have a great day.